You can watch him on Bill Moyers talk about it. Getting rid of people. You can type in Bill Gates says vaccines will reduce population. You'll watch him on TED TV. So see, that's how they run these hoaxes. The insert says can cause everything Wakefield talked about. But they're counting on you being stupid and not going and looking for yourself, so they lie to you. Now, I'm going to give you the big news blitz rundown coming up. Huge attacks on the Second Amendment, you name it. Let me just run down some of the news I've got here in my stack. I've already had a little bit of it. And then I am going to go over 28 ways the globalists are openly committing crimes and unconstitutional actions against us. And a lot of these tie into news that's out today. And I just wrote these in about a minute or two right before I went on air today because I was just thinking about all of the crimes and outrageous garbage going on and how it's getting worse and how historically that's what tyrannies do. They degenerate because the criminals take over and they won't stop their own minions anymore. And the most wicked basically get promoted to the top and compete with each other. And you end up with a hellish situation. And so it's a corrupt, worldly attitude with a scientific, arrogant overlay where the globalists have learned how to manipulate the general population with different scientific tricks. And they think they can get away with anything now. And they say pride goeth before a fall. These elites constantly screw up. They're in control. They control the money supply, the issuance of currency and credit. But they also screw up, and they're not invincible. Sometimes it'd be better if they were, in a way, invincible and knew what they were doing because they think they know what they're doing. And again, they're in general control. But it's kind of like a captain running a ship up on rocks. Okay, he's in control when he does it, but he's still crazy. But here are some of the points I'm going to be going over after I hit some of this news. NDAA, Fast and Furious, government drug dealing, government experimentation on the population, including killing people on record. Why do you ever trust them when they've been caught thousands of times doing it? Government lying, elites exempt from laws and taxes, biggest prison population in the world. Period. All over the world they're growing bigger than they've ever been, and the U.S. has the record. In fact, I IM'd it to you, but I didn't see it in my stack. Will you print me that New Yorker magazine article that just came out called America Caged? Thank you. Fluoride, 7-fold bone cancer, brain damage. It accelerates and magnifies all other drugs in the system on record. Forced inoculations, lying about it, all the death and problems from vaccines, GMOs in every study. There's thousands of them in the rats and guinea pigs, but they block human studies. Just total organ failure, heart problems, brain problems, sterilization, militarization of police, all the telltale signs, the surveillance society, general corruption, all the corruption they're constantly getting caught in. Web censorship, now being admitted, all the out-of-control spying without warrants, totally illegal. See, the Bill of Rights and Constitution protects you. And once you get rid of it, and similar systems worldwide, it always gets bad. There's reasons those protections are there. And people that always have these excuses for why we should, not do this or not do that, or, oh, just abridge it a little bit, or let's have contempt for the Constitution, like Newsweek and Time Magazine have been having cover stories about, like it caused our problems. They're also scapegoating capitalism. The monopoly men don't like capitalism, folks. They're getting rid of it now. Davos is announcing that. And they're using the fact that the elites don't pay taxes, or very little, to twist it and say, see, raise taxes on those making $100,000 a year. That'll get the rich guy. Somebody making $20,000 a year, yeah, it sounds good. Oh, man, these people are so sick. But I want to say they're sophisticated only by the public not being sophisticated or being lazy, not deciding to decode how they operate, is the only way they get away with this. It's all the ultra-rich that are lobbying constantly for big government because they get the government contracts. In fact, I have a video later, an audio I'm going to play breaking that down. General corruption, web censorship, spying, technology suppression, what they call disruptive technology, which means anything that the globalist would hurt any of their monopolies or combines. That's big. I mean, they've killed people over that if they won't sell. A national security dictatorship. That whole COG system where they tell Congress they can't see the COG plans when the Congress is the government on record, and finally a copy of NDAA and the National Defense Authorization Act tie into Presidential Decision Directive 51 openly states in the cover page, they gave Congress the synopsis, that Congress is abolished and that secret groups will run the government. And I've got articles about that where they're taking over major cities, private corporations are, and suspending the governments and saying you have no rights because you're bankrupt. And it was all done by fraud. You can't suspend people's rights just because a city is bankrupt, just because a corporation comes into the state and says it. Man, we're in trouble. This has all been done in third world countries over and over again and been tested. And now the globalists are going for Europe, the U.S., and wealthy areas of Asia. It's called the New World Order. It's a global corporate dictatorship through fraud. People say, well, let us have a world government, man. It's peace like Star Trek. No, no, no. This isn't where we vote into a world government and it's democratic. This is secret tribunals making the decisions. Continuing here. National security dictatorship globally. Environmental takeover, not about the environment. I mean, it's even in my own house, an HEB bag that says all of us should do our part for the environment. Don't use disposable bags. And then now they're banning disposable bags. And whether they're good or bad, the point is, this is all about making us do what they say because it's for the environment, while ignoring genetic modification, toxic waste dumping, radiation levels going up all over the world. Now they just raise the levels of isotopes, in some cases 100,000 times, and just say, well, it's safe now for you. That was in the news a few months ago, but now it's happening globally in a standardized move. Governments are raising what they say is safe radiation. Oh, the TSA doesn't have to test their machines like everybody else does. Oh, you know what? Maybe we'll just have radiology departments not test X-ray machines anymore. I mean, they're actually talking about that. It's like actually poison the river, dump poison everywhere, but then make everybody go, I've got my reusable bag, which they admit is just a post-industrial move to shut down our coal, our energy. I mean, when the city of Austin announced 80% tax hikes on many power users 2 weeks ago, they said, well, it was actually on the news, radio and TV, playing clips of the city council. They said, hey, you're going to pay more. It's for the earth. You're using too much power. But that's not even the reason. They allowed big mega corporations to come in and shut down all the city-owned utilities and smaller companies just so they could then shut down their competition and just jack up prices and just say, hey, it's for the earth. While they have tax incentives on record to move General Motors factories to China and Brazil and Romania, tens of billions of dollars of your bailout money to them, to move publicly, to move out of the country, and China gets 3 new coal plants a week. We get nothing. By the way, when Obama shut down that pipeline to bring oil from Canada to the U.S., it turns out Berkshire Hathaway has the train contract, Bloomberg reported, to ship the oil to the west coast of Canada and ship it to China. The globalists are shutting off our energy. They're not Americans. They're shutting America off. They own the investments overseas. You're brought up in school and you're taught everything's free market. And when something's privatized, there's bids that are put out. And then companies go put out the bids, and whoever has the best price and the best quality, they get the government bid. No, the truth is, politicians are funded from the time that their city council people are even lower in the chain on boards, and the system comes and finds who is the most corrupt, and their wives get jobs at the companies they sell out to, their sons get jobs, their husbands get jobs, and many times now they even insider trade and give government contracts directly at the state, local, and federal level to companies their family owns. And when they get caught in 2011, 2012, I showed you the article last week, CBS News, Congress allowed to insider trade. Of course, I checked the law. It's totally illegal. Congress people went to jail for that 20 years ago. Not now, they don't. It's a national security dictatorship. And you notice everything's circling the drain now. You notice suddenly the prosperity's leaving. You notice suddenly everything's going up in price because they're devaluing the dollar. Because they are shutting down all their competition. They're shutting down the market. I mean, I told you 5 years ago when the decisions were made and announced, back when Bush was in, I said, if you live in Austin, Texas, it's one of the few cities that's been totally taken over by these people. Regardless of who even gets in office federally, you're going to be paying more for power because Austin signed on to the UN agreement to shut down power plants around it and to only let big globalist companies sell power. And so they go out with a straight face and say, the average person will only have a 40% increase. Last year it was 20. But some will have an 80% increase. And we need this for a budgetary shortfall. No, that's another lie. People just think that the money just goes to run the city. No, it goes, most of it goes to the company that's doing the service. It's not privatization. And then libertarians, many of them aren't sophisticated enough to know the difference between a real privatization and a fascist, insider, crony capitalist scam. See, racketeering and organized crime is the standardization and legalization and is a global revolution by the criminal class against free humanity. And all I do is read their white papers, their books, their communiques, and it's all public. They operate like you are lobotomized idiots because they've taught in school and in this culture that it is a virtue not to care. That it is a virtue, I mean, adults, people in business look at you like a weirdo if at dinner you try to bring up to them power generation and the history of electricity and how markets work. Or if you bring up to someone what sodium fluoride is bad for you and they start laughing and you say, no, let me pull up some studies for you. Let me explain sodium fluoride. You just type in sodium fluoride cancer and you'll get major medical journals. They've known it for hundreds of years. And they just go, man, you're weird. You like know stuff. A lot of times people are like awe-inspired that someone knows about stocks and bonds or someone knows about the periodic table or that you know about anything. It's like you're a kook to be informed. Folks, our country was founded by people that were into speaking 4 or 5 languages, including Latin, and who discovered and harnessed electricity, Benjamin Franklin, and who, I mean, all of them were inventors and scientists and into being incredibly intelligent, and they weren't showing off. You read a 1777, 78 newspaper, I have a gigantic vocabulary and can even speed read, and I have trouble reading an average newspaper, and literacy was higher in the 1770s than it is now. You know who the rock stars were? They were inventors. You know who the rock stars were? They were the scientists. And the public wanted to be like that. And the whole world marveled at the United States, invented almost everything. And if you got, and they weren't wimps either. Everyone was very polite because if you slighted someone, they'd say, step outside. You want swords or pistols, pal? And if the person wouldn't retract the statement, they'd walk up and slap them across the face and say, you will come outside. So I don't, men nowadays think it's not manly to understand knowledge. There's nothing more manly. It's the essence of being